This is Richard Jacobs with myduiattorney.org. I'm here today with Zach Westerfield. He's a criminal law and DUI attorney out of Colorado in Denver. Welcome, Mr. Westerfield. How you doing?
Thank you very much. I'm doing well today. How about yourself?
Good. Thanks for taking the time to let me interview you.
Absolutely.
Without delay, let me just get into the questions.
Okay.
First question I have is, what made you choose to handle DUI, and why do you practice this area of law?
Well, I initially started off my legal career doing criminal law, working for the public defender's office. And what I was doing when I was working with the public defender's office was mostly major cases, felony murder, stuff like that. And I noticed that there was a lot of people, in fact, the most common crime that the average Joe, if you will, commits is a DUI. And I noticed that there was a lot of people who weren't getting representation, and they kind of thought that there was nothing that a lawyer could do for them. And as I started to get into that particular situation and research it a little bit more, I thought that it was definitely an area of the law that I would like to practice in to help people out, because like I said, it's the most common thing that the average Joe citizen who isn't a felon or anything like that is going to have to deal with. And the fact that it can affect your license, it can affect your job, it can affect your family, are all reasons why I decided to practice in that area. And also it's interesting work, get to meet a lot of different people and do constitutional law as well, so I enjoy it.
Right on. And then, so how many DUI cases have you handled, and in what time period would you say?
It's hard to know exactly. I don't keep track of every single DUI case that I don't have a running total, but it's over 100, and I've been doing it for about 4 years now.
Okay. So I know you talked about the average Joe, but is there a typical circumstance that they have? Like, is there more men than women, or more first-time offenders, or younger people, older people?
Well, that's actually a pretty interesting question, because in my practice, I found that there really isn't any particular set of circumstances or factors or demographics that DUIs apply to. They really apply to men, they apply to women, they apply to people who are under 21, people who are in their early 20s, people who are much older, different racial backgrounds, first-time offenses, multiple offenses. I see quite a few different things, and I don't think that statistically speaking that there's one demographic that shows a stronger trend towards receiving a DUI than any other particular demographic, and that's what I kind of find fascinating about it. It seems to be one of the few criminal offenses that affects people of all walks, of all socioeconomic, racial, age backgrounds, gender, all those things.
Okay. So what percentage of your clients have like a blood alcohol level that's close to the legal limit versus much higher? Is there any difference there?
Well, the way that it works in Colorado is you can be charged with a DWAI, which is known as driving while ability impaired, if you have a BAC that's actually registered either by a breath test or a blood test of 0.05 to 0.079. And I've only had a few cases where someone actually came to me and their BAC was within the DWAI range. The vast majority of cases, people have a BAC that's greater than 0.08, which puts them in the DUI, or driving under the influence, the more serious of the two charges, puts it in that range. I have a few cases where people are in the kind of higher range here in the state of Colorado. It's mandatory jail time even for a first offense if you have a BAC greater than 0.2. So I do have a few of those cases, but the majority of cases kind of rest between that 0.1 and 0.18 range. I would say is where the majority of my cases fall, but really the range can go from anywhere from 0.05, I've seen, all the way up to basically 0.4.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, extremely high. Basically, that person is got a serious problem.
Yeah, I'm surprised they're alive. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
What percent of the cases you've done have gone to trial versus being able to be settled beforehand out of court?
That's a good question. Now, that usually is something that I do keep track of. And for us, about 7% of the cases that we take actually go through a full-blown trial. There's lots of different things that can happen before actually getting to the full, jury trial phase, and that could, include going to a motions hearing, maybe arguing that the stop was conducted illegally under the Fourth Amendment, or some other issue with the evidence that the prosecution wants to present has a problem. And so a much higher percentage of stuff, I would say, we've gone to motions hearings on, but in terms of a full-blown trial, it's about 7%.
Okay, that's pretty low.
It is relatively low, and I think, it's a little bit higher than what the average is for most criminal cases.
Okay.
It also varies by jurisdiction here in Colorado as well. That's probably also something else to note. Not each jurisdiction here, and by jurisdiction we're talking about each county, because a DUI is a charge that's going to occur in a county court setting.
Okay.
Not each county handles them the same way. So some counties seem to have, higher thresholds for what's going to happen and how they're going to deal with it. Some counties seem to be a little bit more lenient. So depending upon the county also depends upon whether or not that case is going to go to trial, depending upon if we can work something out in terms of a plea agreement with the DA's office. So that's also something that's important to consider, is what county is your DUI going to be prosecuted in.
Okay, interesting. This leads into the next question. You answered it already partially. What's unique about the DUI laws in, well, your particular county and your state. But can you say more about that?
Absolutely. Well, that, like you said, is the first thing, is the way that the prosecution is going to view a DUI case varies greatly from county to county. So, for example, in Jefferson County, I tend to have more cases go to trial because they're not really willing to sit down and work with a plea agreement. Obviously, when you start talking about mandatory jail time, that's another reason why things may change and you may want to go to trial. And in Colorado, mandatory jail time occurs either on a second drinking and driving offense, or even on a first drinking and driving offense if your BAC is greater than 0.2. So they don't really call it an aggravated DUI like they do in some other states or some other jurisdictions, but basically that's what it amounts to, because it's mandatory jail time even for a first offense, depending upon what your BAC is. I think the other thing that's important to know about the laws of the state of Colorado is how being charged with a DUI affects you not only in terms of the criminal justice system, but also with the Department of Motor Vehicles. And in Colorado, those are two separate and distinct events. So when you get charged with a DUI, normally you're going to have to deal with the criminal element in county court, but you're also going to have to separately deal with your driver's license through the Department of Motor Vehicles and deal with that administrative procedure. So it kind of creates an interesting situation where you're dealing with administrative law and your license and the status of your driver's license with the DMV, and then you're also dealing with the DA's office, the county court, and the criminal side of things. They're two separate things. You can technically retain your driver's license and resolve your DUI in a particular manner that doesn't won't cause you to lose your driver's license at the criminal side of things, vice versa, or mix and match. So people need to be aware that they're two separate events, and there's also in Colorado a very limited amount of time once you're charged with the DUI to request that hearing with the DMV. And if you don't request the hearing with the DMV within a certain period of time, then you automatically have your driver's license suspended.
Okay. Yeah, it's important to know. I'm sure a lot of people don't know that they're going to have to deal with two, essentially, sets of charges, different ones.
Yeah, it's not really charges because one's not really criminal. It's administrative. It's a little different burden of proof, but that's exactly right. They're two separate events is the best way to think about it. One is strictly dealing with the state Department of Revenue, which is in control of the Motor Vehicle Department, and that has to do with the status of your driver's license. That's also where if you're going to have anything like SR22 insurance, or if you're going to have to drive your vehicle with interlock, all that's going to occur at the administrative side of things. The court never imposes those requirements.
Oh, okay.
That's a different set of circumstances. Exactly. Two separate events.